All right, all right, all right, you crazy sons of bitches. Okay, this is a test. Can you hear me? Just making sure that the microphone is working because this is all brand new. Can you hear me? Please, for the love of God. Can anybody hear me? Talking about that, a baby Spencer. Blue for Delta. Motherfucking hell, yeah. Okay. I'm just going to go and organize this Photoshop, and then I'll be back. I would estimate in 2 minutes. Oh, okay. If you have questions, actually, in the meantime, while I'm doing this, if you have questions, I don't know, about the feature, we're going to talk a lot about the feature today, about what we're going to do with the feature stuff today. But if you got questions, general ones, get them in now. I'm going to go find a project that somebody sent and, yeah, pull some stills from that just in case. Okay, be back. Oh, hot damn. Well, look who it is, you crazy motherfuckers. Hello. Welcome back to the live stream. Is it a pleasure to be here? I think so. I don't know if you can hear, but sometime between the last live stream and this live stream, my computer has gotten even slower. So, it sounds like it's going to explode. I'm going to ignore it. If it goes down, I'm at the Apple Store buying a new computer. Welcome back. Holy shit. We did this. When was the last time we did one of these things? Had to have been October? I'm surprised I know how to do them still. What has been going on? Except for me spitting on the microphone. Shot a fucking movie. How's that for something? Shot a goddamn movie. Holy fuck. And did it go as expected? No. Not at all. Not at all. Fuck, we're going to have some stories. We're going to have some serious shit to talk about. I don't know. Should I go through, maybe I'll go through the questions first here to see if any of it covers what I'm going to be covering in how we're going to be doing, I don't know, how I see the live streams going from here, because there's 141 scenes in the movie. There's 61 locations, averaging anywhere between 30 and 40 setups a day. So to say that we have a bountiful resource of times when I fucked up to pull from and to learn from would be a gross understatement. We have, the volume is ridiculous, but trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to go about presenting this to make any sense of it? Because if you just see a little bit of, if we just start with some sort of random snippet from day 14, it's going to be really hard. Well, it's just going to be a lot of time me explaining why we're doing these things. So is it better to just start from the beginning, and we'll talk about the pre-production. We'll talk about what we were looking for during that pre-production process, the location scouting process, then get into the shoot days, and then just do the shoot days in order that we shot them. The problem is, it's just going to take forever. I mean, to get through, I was looking at shoot day 1 today. Shoot day 1, 33 setups or something? Like, we don't have time to do 33 setups, but every setup is different in the way that we lit it and informed decisions about how we lit other things and the coverage that was chosen versus the coverage that wasn't. So this, it's just getting to grips with the sheer volume of the shit that we're about to tackle. So who knows? Let's get into the questions. We'll say hello to this man, actually. This gentleman you're going to be seeing a lot of. He was one of the, let's see, there was one principal lead, and then there was 3 cast members that were just below that, sort of in a lot of the movie, not in every single scene. We had one particular actor who was in every single scene in the movie. He didn't get any days off during our shoot days, and so you're going to be seeing a lot of his face. But this is his brother. This is Joel Jackson, and this is from shoot day 1, actually. And Joel wasn't involved in shoot day 1. He didn't have any scenes that day, but during our camera prep, the glasses that he's wearing in this particular shot were not available. They weren't ready yet. And the glasses is a topic of a whole different thing, but he had to come in just for this camera test. So you've seen a still from the movie now. Let's get to the questions. Okay. Here we go. Hello, everyone. First of all, yes, if you said hello to me and I missed you. Okay, let's see. This one's from 96 Frogger, whose name I don't recognize. So welcome to the live stream, Frogger. Hi, Patrick. Just a quick general question about how you go about protecting highlights and erasing color detail in the shadows of a scene. Say an example in a moody bar with neon lights. Well, Frogger, you have come to the right fucking place, because we have got neon. We shot in an all neon 1950s diner with a Joel, actually, the gentleman that you're staring at, Joel, who is very much Caucasian. And then we had a waitress behind the bar who was very much African. And she was from, I believe, Ghana. Very dark skin tones, but beautiful reflection from all the neon. So that was a whole day. We actually shot in this place. They had a little conversation back and forth. So we're going to get into that. Basically, how you do it. How do you preserve detail? The same trick that we've always talked about, which is ISO. We were shooting Arri RAW for the film. So if you're in RAW world, you want to get as much light hitting the sensor as possible, which will reduce the amount of noise. But it is always a fine balance between shooting in low light and having enough level. Night exteriors, it's much harder to get away with this style than interiors. If you're interiors on a stage, or if you're even on location interior, you can do this ISO trick where you lower the ISO, which in fact has nothing, well, relatively nothing to do with the final image. You're just tricking yourself into allowing more light to hit the sensor. It makes it easier to work because you can work at lower T-stops and not have to worry about contamination from everywhere, and using ND filters. It makes it slightly easier to do lighting, because you don't have to be lighting to 5-foot candles for a key light. As you lower the ISO, more light hits the sensor, things get cleaner. That would be my number one trick. And we use that a bunch. We lived on 400 for all of our night interiors. Okay. So we'll get there, basically. Tyler, yes, I'm back. Would love to hear more about the DXL2 commercial that you shot, ProVid Life. That is next week's breakdown. I promised it last week, and I didn't deliver because I was having a holiday from talking about anything film-related. I just could not be fucked. The last week on the film was crazy. I just needed a break. But we're going to be back there this week. Next week on the podcast is, or what is it, 5 days from now on the podcast. There will be the breakdown of the DXL2 commercial. So, good things to look forward to there. Let's see. Anyone have good recommendations for comfy shoes? Nope. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Let's see. Jesus, you guys went crazy on the shoe talk there. Okay. Bill, live stream looking highly compressed. Could that be from my shitty internet? Could that possibly be? Okay. Let's see. Breaking down the feature chronologically would be the best way to learn, in my opinion, and just cut the fat and non-essential or repetitive info to make it more efficient. Fat fucking chance of that, Alec. Cutting the fat with me, no chance. You're going to have to sit through all of the fluff that I provide. Taylor, what's your favorite way to get that steely blue, slightly desaturated moonlight? Is it just daylight 5600, or is it some combo or gel? I don't know. I don't know if I like the steely blue, slightly desaturated moonlight. Moonlight, generally, what we did on the film was 4300. Moonlight comes in at 5000. Just slightly blue. Very little blue. Then the practicals warm up slightly more than that. So you're looking at very, very, very small layers of blue. Okay. That's it. So for the feature, that is the plan. The plan is to go through every single day of the shoot. I'll show you the schedule, which is what we would plan to do. We're going to walk through the coverage, the sides. I don't know. We don't really need the script. It doesn't really make a difference for the lighting, because that's really what we're learning. The lighting, the framing to a certain extent. I guess we're going to talk about that just because of the limitations of the locations. We'll spend some time on that. But really, it's the lighting and the blocking, even as much as that was much more the director. And even the coverage, which was probably the big point of contention throughout the entire film, was the coverage. We didn't have a lot of days. I guess I'll just do a brief overview of the film itself. It was really, really difficult. Difficult not because movies are hard. This was just really challenging. The amount of locations, the amount of time that we would have in each spot, and the style of coverage that was necessary. And when I say was necessary, it means from what the director wanted. which is why everybody's there, to give the director exactly what they're looking for. And we had a really, really intense coverage schedule. And that was probably the thing that caused the most tension on set, was the sheer style of coverage, because we were doing really, really master wides, and then we were doing mediums, then we were doing close-ups, and it was just on every single thing. And we got, slowly but surely, we got better as we went along, I think, as a unit, getting better at the coverage, and getting better at selection of what coverage was necessary. And as your coverage gets better, so does your lighting, because now you can be much more exact in where you're going. You don't have as much time, or you don't need as much time in between setups if you know, okay, we're definitely, and it sounds basic, but we're definitely never going to see that corner, right? That corner is our safe corner. It's boring as shit, and we never ever want to see over there. If you can be 100% sure you're never going to see over there, then things can move much more efficiently. If you're 90% sure that you're never going to see over there, then things can get a little bit fucked. That's when problems can happen. And that was probably, going into it, was the most challenging, because I took words as 100%. This is what's going to happen. We're never ever going to see in that corner. And then every day for about the first 2 weeks, we saw in those corners, and we changed the coverage completely from our pre-production. Like, basically all of the work that we did in pre-production, essentially we flushed down the toilet the very first day. All of that stuff, all of our shot lists. I mean, we kept it to a loose minimum. We would go over our shot list beforehand. We would go over what we needed the next day with the director, myself, first AD, all of those positions. But I mean, it was fucking chaos. But I think we got better as it went. But the most challenging thing, this is a common question that people have sent in. What was the most challenging thing? Definitely getting on the same page as the person who's in charge, right? The director, they want a very specific thing, and pulling that idea out of them and then saying, okay, this is our idea, right? We've got 12 hours today to get this idea that you have in your head recorded. What can we do to actually get there? And a lot of the film is us getting there. And I think you'll see that when we start looking at the stills, is just us getting there on the day. It was much less, what's the word? Much less creative, and much more full-time, all the time problem solving, which is what I've said I liked about cinematography. I like the problem solving aspect of it, but it's just like relentless. Wait, what? We've changed what? Now we got to do this. Now this has got to change. Now that's got to change. This changes the whole structure for that. We're 3 hours behind. The last fucking day in Sydney, we were so far behind. We got 1 day before our main actor flies back to Vancouver for his next job. And there's no coming back. We were 3 hours behind, and it was just a fucking mad panic. Like, not like I'm actually panicking, but just frantic. Just, okay, let's go. If we don't get this shot on this one, the sun is going to go behind that building, and then we got to rethink the entire scene. We have to do it now. You don't get this take, we're completely fucked. If we are completely fucked, we need to rethink the entire thing. And it was that, but all the time for 6 weeks. just getting out of the problems fast enough to move on to the next problem. So I would say, from what I thought it was going to be to what it was much more just how do we get this? And very little how can we make this picture that we're looking at help tell the story better? So I don't know. I mean, I think we got better. Again, I think we got better as we went along. We got much better. But it was just finding the language of the film in those first few days and weeks. Yes, that was really, really challenging. Really, really hard to get on the same page and the same lighting and the same, okay, this is, talking through the ideas of when we go to see a location And when we get in that location, these are the things that we're looking for, and talking to the director and talking to the production designer and trying to educate people on what we're going to be going for. And then you get in there and the actor wants to stand over there and then crisscross across this room. And it's like, well, I mean, that what they're doing, I mean, that completely fucks us. Not from a lighting point of view, not from a let's make it pretty point of view, but like we got all of our shit on that side of the room. So, okay, you want to light it 360 degrees, that's going to take 4 hours. Well, not even to make it look pretty. I'm not talking about me going, okay, this has to be, it has to look like, I don't know, The Godfather or something. There's a very specific look for going, no, I'm not even talking about getting a specific look. I'm just saying to get all of our shit out of here and to get something that is, you know, above 10-foot candles over in this corner of the room, we got to put a light there. And how do you want to do 360 if we can't have any light stands or any lights in the room? You know, like, yeah, it was just fucking madhouse. So it was a lot more getting things. Just getting things. Getting things. And the plans, oh, Jesus, they changed. They changed real fast. Okay. Srini, did I just answer your question? I think I did. There was like brief conversations about, okay, how can we, does this shot work? We found a couple times we found shots that we kept repeating throughout the entire thing. Like we found very early on that our man who is a, he is, what's it called? He is, it's a disease. It's not a disease. It's a mental illness. Schizophrenic. And he gets into these episodes throughout the film multiple times. And we found that the best way to do that was with a 50mm with a +2 diopter, get really, really close to his face. Everything, the whole world drops away. And it was just a really unique look. So we found shots like that. And then at the end of each day, when we would have our recap with the first AD, the director, the visual effects supervisor, all these people would come to these things and just say, okay, what worked today? What didn't work? Let's take a look at the rushes just very briefly and go, okay, that particular shot worked. This is where we went wrong. This is why we ended up an hour behind. This is why we had to cut that scene from today and we have to add it on tomorrow. You know, the jigsaw puzzle was just always moving. And that's when that would happen. I mean, very rarely, if ever, would we have the time on set because I was operating and doing the rest of the job. It's not like I'm parked next to the director, which in hindsight probably would have made things significantly easier that I guess I hadn't thought of when doing a film with an operator, is that you have that much more time to be in the director's ear talking about coverage rather than leaving it to the director and the script supervisor or the continuity person because they were there at the monitor all the time. You go back to the monitor and they're chatting about, you know, what they need next in the coverage. And if you come in late to that conversation, you say, well, you know, maybe those ideas aren't the best. You're almost too late to the game to interject in that conversation. So I would say that was something that I had not thought of, where an operator would be valuable. Yeah. Did you find limiting shooting with a famous actor in the main role then? Would they ruin loads of things that way, as you said? No, not at all. No, it was more that, I mean, it wasn't even have to do with famous actors. It's just the actors. They obviously had the ability to go in and say, you know, this is what I feel like. This is where I would sit. This is when I'm going to get up. This is when I'm going to stand. This is when I'm going to sit down. And what happens on these films, if you've never been on one before, is there will be, so pre-production days, we'll go in, we'll look at a location and say, okay, this works. This location works. If we look at the scene and we break it down with the director, myself, the first AD's there, sometimes one of the producers will be there talking about the location, the locations manager is there, and we're plotting out this scene in this little area, right? And let's say, for argument's sake, it's two people, they're talking in a bedroom. So we're in this bedroom, we're looking around, okay, this works. This works because we can, you know, light through this window, we can do this, we can do that, they can have their conversation here, and that's the scene, and we get our 3 shots. All right, we get our little wide from the doorway. We get our back single looking one way, and then we get our single looking the other way. That feels good. And then you get there on the day, and the actor says, well, you know, I don't, it feels weird that we would just plonk into the scene, so maybe I'll just, you know, I'll start standing up over here, and then I'll walk in. Well, now if you start standing up, you know, we're in a little bit of a world of hurt, because if you're going to stand and sit, well, then we got 2 shots there, because standing is one, sitting is another, right? Because we're going to have to change levels. And do you want to do ropey dope handheld when they change levels? Like, do you want to see that level change, or do you want it to be plonk? He's saying his lines as he's standing up, plonk on the other person, they're saying their lines, and then the person sits down, and then you plonk again. So that right there is adding to the coverage, unless you want to keep it as one. If you want to keep it as one, now it's a much more choreographed scene, which takes a little bit longer, because as the operator, I've got to get their timing right. Okay, they're going to say that line. I'm going to take 2 steps back. They're going to shuffle over 2 steps. They're going to sit down. I'm going to sit down. The chances of us getting that on the very first take, not very high. And then you've got, well, if they're going to move like that, then we got a light over there too, which changes our lighting and changes our framing on the wide. So one little tiny thing just implodes a scene. And not implode as in make it terrible, right? Because you adjust and make it better, but it completely throws out the whole reason we were in a specific location. And now you got an option there. You can either say, as if you're the director, you can say, yeah, I feel like it really plays out here. Or you can say, okay, yeah, let's run with that idea instead. And then turn around and see everyone going like this, like, wait, what are we doing? They're going to stand up, and then they're going to sit down, and then we're going to look in the direction that we said we would never look in. And then all of a sudden, that scene that was going to be 3 shots and take 45 minutes is now 5 shots. And we're seeing in that corner we were never going to see in, which looks like shit anyway. It's like, fuck, we just got to come up with a solution to get it. So I think main difference between what I thought and reality is just how little time was spent crafting, like thinking about the impact of, like, actually crafting the look versus what can we do in the 10 minutes that we have to get something that will look not shit. We're in this spot. We got to get something that's not shitty. How do we do that? What's the quickest way? What's the easiest way? How's it going to match up when we turn around the other way? Right? Because if we light for one way, make it beautiful, and it stitches us up and it takes 15 minutes out of our 45 minutes of shooting, and then we have to flip around and do another 15 minutes, we're not going to make the day. And if we don't make the day, one day we're going to go into overtime. We didn't have any money to go into overtime. 0 money to go into overtime. So those conversations aren't like on commercials. Fuck it, you go into overtime. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, you tried to cram too much shit into a day. You're going to go into overtime. On this, it was like, you know, people start looking at their watches at 2 o'clock and you're 2 hours behind and you got 3 more hours in the day. And they're like, you're going to have to speed up or we're going to have to cut some scenes. And the director doesn't want to cut any scenes. So we're speeding up. And so you could put all your work into that morning stuff and try and make it look as awesome as possible. And then as it just trickles on, as it gets later and later in the day, you're just like, fuck, go. Put that thing up there. Put the tubes everywhere. Just fucking tubes everywhere. Those things saved my fucking life. Yeah, saved my life. I was going somewhere with that, and I can't remember where. Oh yeah, overtime. So you couldn't do it. So it was much more basic lighting. Like everything we've always talked about, I broke every rule that we've always talked about. And when I say I broke it, I mean my heart broke breaking them. And looking at the stuff going, fuck, I'm going to have to talk about this on the podcast, and it's just going to be shit. And knowing like, oh man, this could have been good. You know, one thing that I'm interested in talking to more cinematographers about is how many excuses they come up with in their head. Like how many Does everyone look at everything and go, God damn it, that thing in the background, like, if we just hadn't have looked that way, couldn't we just fucking shift a little bit? Couldn't the person land just a little bit left? And I want to know if that's just me, because everything I see, well, not everything, probably 75% of shots in the film, I'm looking at them going, fuck, like, oh, damn it. Like, you just see what could have been. Like, oh, damn it. And I don't know if I'm being too hard on myself or if that's just the way it is. Some of the stuff is awesome. Some of the stuff is just like, damn it. Fuck. Just moving so fast. So, things that I learned, I mean, I certainly got better at, probably the thing I got the best at was understanding the director when he was talking to me, saying, this is what I need from the scene. And his version of that at the start versus my version at the start, we were just not compatible, just not the same. So that was probably the thing that I got the best at, is going, okay, this is what he wants. This is what's going to allow us to get through the day. This is what's going to allow us to get through the day without me wanting to go home at the end of the night, and try and kill myself because of the stuff that we were getting. That was like, because you're sitting there looking at the monitor going, fuck, like, we don't have time to change this fucking thing. And we got to get this scene because we got to get the next thing. And like, holy shit. And if you allow it to, overwhelm you, if you're doing 14 hours a day, you get home and you're just like, Jesus Christ, got to do it again tomorrow. And I got better at just saying, okay, this is the way that it has to be. You just got to keep going. Like, okay, we do what we can in the time that we can with the tools that we have. Like, you just got to, we had to, I wouldn't say lower expectations, but I would say be looser with what I would normally do. Significantly looser. I would say that. Oh, man. Yeah. Let's see. Dan to Jesus. Do you, just fucking around there, Dan. Do you think you want to direct on a feature? No. The volume of work, the sheer volume of work that these people do. There's so many fucking decisions to be made. People pulling you in every direction, talking about costume, talking about hair, talking about every single moment of every single day that you're there, just completely underwater for 30 days. No breathing. Just like, fuck, that didn't work. We got to come up with plan B. That didn't work. Fuck me. Next one. Get something. Okay, we're on this scene now. We got to get this scene. This is, remember, you're sad. You're supposed to be crying. Okay, action. No, I would not want to do it. Not interested at all. iCraft video, love it. I broke every rule and my heart broke every time. It's true. It's true. I have never experienced more heartbreak in my life. And that makes it sound like a negative experience, which at times it was certainly challenging. But, I mean, it was still fun. We're making a fucking movie, It wasn't that serious. But it's just like, no, oh man, fuck, shit. I am sure every DP has one or more in a movie, just less and less as the projects get more money and you have more power as a cinematographer. I don't think so, Ricardo. This is what I've come, because I've started this new round of interviews post the feature, and this has been my number one asking point, is I don't know if money would have solved the issues that we ran into. Like the main issues, I don't think money would have solved those. Maybe time would have. I'll tell you what, this is an interesting thing. All right, so our lead talent is a guy named Brenton Thwaites, and Brenton is known for, he probably rose to fame as replacing Orlando Bloom in Pirates of the Caribbean. He's that guy. And now he stars in this big Netflix drama, or big Netflix action movie type thing called Titans. So he's the lead in that. And he's worked on, giant things like Pirates or smaller stuff. Like he's got lots and lots of film stuff. And throughout the 30 days, he was in almost every scene in the movie. So we're going to be seeing a lot of his face. He's the main lead. He's in every scene. He's all the time there. Super awesome guy and a class act all the way around. Never complained, never never did anything like that. Just a great guy. We were at the wrap party, which the wrap party on this was not your traditional wrap party. It was about 6 of us sitting around having a drink in Sydney after we had finished. And unbeknownst to me, the entire time on the movie, he and the first AD had a running bet. And the bet was whether or not Brenton would get a 5-minute break in between blocking and shooting for the entire movie. And it only happened one time in 30 days. So you have the director's block, where it's myself, the continuity person, first AD, the director, and the talent for that specific scene. We sit around while the director goes through, talks about it with the talent, with the actors, and says, okay, this is what we're going to do for this scene. This is what we're thinking for coverage. You guys play it out. They run it a few times. Then the first AD calls in the rest of the crew. Everybody that needs to watch it watches it, whether it's the gaffer, the grip, if there's some sort of move or something. The focus puller's there to see what he needs to get. Hair and makeup. Everyone comes in for that second walkthrough or block through. And after the block, you come back, or the talent goes away, actors go away, and they get their wardrobe and whatever it is. And normally you've sort of roughed in a few big things, right? If you were on a bigger movie, the rigging gaffer would have done it all. You sort of blocked everything in place, all the lights. Then you bring in the stand-in, you adjust the lights a little bit, and you move some things based on the blocking. You come back and, half an hour later, you've lit the scene and you're ready for the talent to come in. You're going to start with the wide, and then you're going to move into the closer shots. That's generally the workflow. And that takes time. On this, one time, more than 5 minutes between blocking and shooting. We're fucking moving. There was no breaks. And he said it was the fastest he'd ever seen any teamwork. And he was he gave very high praise to the lighting department because they were just moving so fast. Like, just incredible speeds for the entire 30 days. And by the end of it, we talked about this on the podcast, on the daily podcast, like the diary podcast, that at the end of the second week, there was a small revolt in the crew that was coming from lighting, just saying, we can't keep this pace up. Like, we're literally running into the ground. So if we don't change the coverage, we're going to have problems. So there was that mini revolt. And then, all the backlash that came with that and the steps that then had to take place in order not to have that happen. But we were just running them into the ground, just absolutely flying. Okay. Let's go to what else we got here. Go back. Srini, sounds like you're holding yourself to a really high standard. It's natural not to meet your own tastes on your first feature. It's such a different beast to commercials. Yeah, I mean, like I said during the actual weekly podcast when we were making the thing, it's not that much different for me. Like, the job is very, very similar. If you can make one thing look good, you can make 1,000 things in a row look good. Every time you step into a location, okay, these are the things that we have to do to make this look good. The challenging part was saying we can't do those things. Like that first response that I would always have of saying, like, this is how we make this look good. Well, that wasn't an option. So what's the second or third way that you would make this look good? That was the real challenging part, is activating those, activating the things that it would take to do that. John Ross, better to just light the space and roll with it. That's what we were doing. Even lighting the space, though, it takes time to just light the space. I mean, there was no lighting for close-ups. There was no lighting for any of that. I got to change the battery. Block battery. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, there was no chance we were lighting on a shot-by-shot basis. And I think you'll get the feel of that once we get into it and you see. Let's see. Dan's laughing. Jeff, what's happening, Jeff? How are you? Good, I hope. Dude, I think the feeling of never getting the shot quite perfect is so common. I think we all feel it. I sure do. Beating ourselves up over it just comes with the territory. Yeah. I would agree. I would wholeheartedly agree. And that is never really a problem on commercials for me. In the sense that, yeah, I feel the exact same thing on a commercial. But this, it was just the volume of that feeling. And then thinking back, you get home at the end of the day. And that feeling of having it happen every setup, and there being 30 of those setups, at the end of it, you're just like, did we get anything? Like, how bad is my memory? Is it as bad as I think it is? Did we get anything? And then, you look at the dailies the next day and you're like, okay, I feel slightly better. But then that doesn't stop me from doing the same thing the next day. And it just builds and builds and builds. It's like, holy shit. So that was where I mostly improved, because I realized, okay, even if it isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, at least we're getting something. And we're getting through the days. And then that starts to make me wonder how much, because I just never thought that would be a thing to the degree that it was on this. I always thought, oh, okay, it would be easier on a feature because no one's telling you what to do, apart from the director. No one's telling you how to do this thing, so that you would be able to get much closer to what you had in your head. When in fact, I found this couldn't have been further from the truth. Don't know. How much input did you get to have with the art director? You should see these questions. That way they know in the future. How much input did you have with the art director shooting into a corner you never planned to? Were you able to push to get practical setup or some pop of color to help the frame? Yeah. It wasn't so much, the art director was awesome. Everyone, that's the thing, is everyone's on the same team, right? So there's no one that's like a giant dickhead. Everybody is on the same team. They all understand to a certain degree what you need to make things look pretty. And the art director, the production designer, super experienced. The first AD, awesome. Just an amazing person and really nailed the schedule and did the best that they could. Same with the director. They're trying to get what they need in their head to make this thing work in their mind. They're the only person in there, though, so it's about how they can communicate with you and get on the same page, right? And we already talked about that. But, yeah, there was just... Sometimes you'd like, fuck, that corner looks like shit. So then it becomes, how much of a dickhead do you want to be? And is it bad to be a dickhead? Is it bad to say, we're shooting into this corner, it looks like absolute shit? Because that's the reality, is it does look like shit. We could change it so it doesn't look like shit, but that would mean rethinking the scene. So how hard do you push back on the director to say, listen, and this looks like shit? I guess my job is to make it not look like shit, but we're boxed in. And I'll give you an example. There was a scene where we were in on location shooting shooting day for night. Anyway, it was daytime. We wanted to make it look like nighttime. So we were on the second floor. We had tinted all of the windows. There was 7 giant bay windows. We had the whole thing tinted. We were bringing all this natural moonlight from the edges. Our lead comes in with his girlfriend. They're making out as they come through the doorway. Now, the door is in a corner of the room that doesn't have any windows by it. And we're using the windows because they're coming into an empty apartment. We have a few little practicals turned on, but we're looking into this corner of the room that is away from all the windows, right? Maybe I should just draw it. Maybe that'll be easier. Maybe I'll just draw it so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, that's not going to work. Lord knows, the world's fucking slowest computer. Bring up the pen. See if I can draw this. Oh, it's not going to work. Damn it. Too slow. Anyway, it just looks like we're boxed in, and there's nowhere to bring any moonlight from. And the practicals on the wall do something, but it's very sparse. Like, you can barely see the people. And it's okay if we barely see the people for some of it, but it can't be dark as shit the whole time. But we're pointing into this fronty lit box, and there's no contrast because the whole moonlight is lighting up both of the walls that we're looking at into this walled area. Then we have these warm practicals, like the talent has to come down this particular row of furniture, and you're like, fuck, couldn't they just come down this way? Like, the open up to the room, and that way we could shoot towards the window? It's like, no, they feel more comfortable doing it the other way. You're like, fuck. What are you going to do? We're looking into these fucking two walls. It looks like shit. I don't know. That's just one example. Okay. Do you give the director first AD the option to choose between taking longer to light when you see the whole room versus being faster by doing what was originally agreed so that it is agreed and understood? Yeah, I started doing that. That's how we started. I would say, okay, to get this, it's going to be... But I mean, you know the schedule from... You know, the whole schedule is released before the movie starts. It's not like every day you're getting surprised with how much you have to shoot. It's just we're taking the schedule one day at a time the night before, chunking it into exactly how it's going to be broken down for camera, not for cast or crew or anything. That's all long decided. But you can't take, an hour. There's limitations even if you give them the option, right? There's no way. It's more options on coverage than it is options on lighting setups, because that time is really dictated by the schedule, by the locked-in schedule at the beginning of the production. You can't just go, this is going to take 3 hours to do this thing. Let's take 3 hours. It's going to look awesome. That was never an option. But I would say, if we want to get the reverse of that, it's going to take 15 minutes for us to break down what we just did, flip around, build it up again. So that's 15 minutes that we're going to lose off of scene 87, which is the next scene coming up. And that scene we talked about is 4 shots, but the blocking looked like now it could be more. So we can get that reverse that you wanted, or we can try and make it work in this one shot. So those conversations were constant. Just like, okay, we just need to constantly be coming up with alternatives. Like, you can do this, but it affects this. If-then statements, basically. If we do this, then this thing gets fucked. If we do this, then this thing's gone. If we don't change the position of those two people coming in the apartment and they come down that wall with the two flat, like, if we don't change it, then it's going to look like shit. If we change it, it will look better. Those sorts of statements all the time. And I found that really being nice and getting what you want was the hardest battle, right? Because in general, I'm a person that doesn't like, I wouldn't go out of my way to say that someone's idea is bad or someone's idea is stupid, or that basically being combative. And I think that really, looking back, the bigger the dickhead you are, the better the results, or the closer that it would get to what's in your head. Because you can have the production manager come up to you and say, listen, do you really need that? Do you really need that knuckle boom arm to light that night exterior? Do you really need that? And you can be nice and say, okay, yeah, I know, there's no money. So we don't need that. We can think of another solution. And then you get there and the plan changes from the original shot list, and you're like, fuck, now we can't do that without a knuckle boom. Or it's going to be really hard, or it's going to look like shit. So it never paid, not one single time did it pay to say, okay, to make any concession. It didn't pay. Now, that's not to say you should, looking back, I shouldn't have been combative at every single instance. But it's a fine line between how much you push back versus how much you don't push back. Okay, let's do iCraft Video. How many hours per day were you putting in? I would say we were on set shooting we were doing 12-hour days, and we did almost an hour pre-call every day for lighting and for grips and for camera. Camera was probably like 15-minute pre-call most days, unless we were starting with gimbal or Steadicam or something like that. And then we would get there, the director, myself, and the first AD would always get there about an hour earlier. So 14 at a minimum would be, 14 at a minimum. And then we had a couple 7-day weeks that were supposed to be 6 that turned into 7. We had 2 of those. So there was one period there where we worked for, I think it was about 21 days straight, of 14-hour days minimum. So it's a lot of work. Blue 4 Delta, are you looking to do the next feature, or do you want to take a break and shoot commercials for a little while? Do you feel like you've grown more from this experience than commercials? Certainly my outlook has changed. My outlook on what I would appreciate in a feature has changed. Looking at other people's stuff, talking to other people, which is good because it's going to evolve the podcast, evolve those conversations, I hope. My appreciation for the job. There was so little making of the image. I mean, that was just the tiniest little fraction of the job. The overwhelmingly other large parts was management of not just people, but of the whole situation. Management of locations. I mean, there's not a moment on set where we weren't looking at tomorrow's location, or looking at 2 weeks from now location, or watching dailies from a scene and saying, oh, we really need this pickup shot for that to work, or we need that to work. It's just constantly, and much less looking at the monitor going, yeah, we could probably use, a little bit of an edge light here, or let's just bump that up half a stop. Those conversations, because everyone was so experienced on set and the workflow was there, we were able to do those things real quick. That was the snappy part. That was the easy part. The part that I think, at least in my head, that I'm best at was the part that I did the least, like making something look good in a space. There's your problem. This is the tool set that you have. Go do that. That was like the least of it. That was by far the least of it. Are you looking to do your next feature, or do you want to take a break? I think I learned a huge thing about what I would do for my next feature. Like, what would be the important things to look for? What I would want to talk about before we did it. I think I wouldn't want to jump on one real soon. I'm happy. Give me whatever it is, 7 days, a month for a little bit. Okay, Jeff, I would want my DP to always be the dickhead and fight for a better image. See, that's what you say. And I completely understand that. But, I mean, I heard time and time again from other individuals who have done much bigger things and been on many, many more projects. The grip and the gaffer that we had, they've done over 100 movies. And you can get along with someone, awesome, and have the worst on-set relationship ever. Because if you go the dickhead route for the better image, like, I'll be fighting back on every single thing that I would have been fighting back on every single shot that we did. And how long until that becomes unbearable? That you physically can't, as people, awesome. But looking at the thing, it's like, no, this would be way better if we did this. And how many times do you say that before you go, okay, let's shoot it? Like, let's just shoot it the other way. How many attempts do you make to change something before you're just like, oh, fuck it, okay? That's the question. Because if you're going to go full dickhead, you got to go, like, just be prepared for the most uncomfortable 30 days of your whole life. I guess. I don't know. Because I think I told this story in the weekly podcast. I got actually taken aside because I was being too negative about the locations. And and not happy because I came on a little bit later than the director and the locations manager had already been on for quite some time. And, you go through the script and you start seeing locations, and some of them were just absolutely dog shit. And is the job to say this is dog shit, or is the job to say, well, we can make this work? I mean, you can make anything work. You fucking show up in a spot, you turn on the camera, you can make it work. You can capture some image. But what are we doing here? Are we wasting our, are we trying to make something great, or are we just turning on the camera? Because if we're trying to make something great, this location is fucking terrible. For a number of reasons, not just well, how could I put this? I was trying to be as honest and upfront as possible, because thinking, well, if I'm that, then we can find a solution to this. We can find other locations that won't be as bad. And that wasn't the case. We never found those. We never found those, and people got upset that your G&E crew put their foot down. What role did you play? Did they come to you? How did you navigate that? Okay, this is an interesting one. So we had this giant setup, day 14. So this would have been, 2.5 weeks into it. And like I said, we had been motoring, trying to get through this stuff. And we had a giant day. We were shooting a big wedding scene. And this wedding scene had been the hardest location to lock down of the entire shoot, where we were going to do this. It was a big scene, and it was, I think, 3 pages, but it was lots and lots of coverage, lots and lots of people involved. Everyone from the entire film was at this wedding, and they all needed their little moment on camera because they had they had lines in this corner of the wedding, they had lines in that corner of the wedding. Was it going to be outdoors, indoors, under a tent, whatever? And we ended up under a tent, under a gazebo setup. And because we needed transition from dusk, there was a dusk scene, then there was also a night scene. So a dusk scene means you have a hard out. You have to be done with the day stuff because we need this dusk shot. So that just ups the pressure. We needed this day stuff to happen. We needed to get that done so that when dusk came around, we could completely be done with the day stuff, never come back to it, and just get onto the dusk stuff, which was a fairly complicated scene. It was down by the water, lots of things happening at dusk. There's a little bit of wind, there's complications. And during the day, the level that was outside in the hot Australian sun, we were getting, 90s on the light meter. You get 90 on the light meter from the direct sun. And then boats are reading 128 in the background at this water location. Boats are 128 or above. So a shitload of hot level now. You could say, well, let's just let it all blow out back there and do A Star is Born and just let the whole thing blow out. I didn't want that. I didn't want it to look like that. I think that looks like shit. I didn't like it. So how do we get level underneath this gazebo, underneath this tent? Well, we need some big ass lights, and we're going to push a fuckload of level into it. Right? But that then means if you're pushing a fuckload of light in, that means big lights, big stands, big frames. You can shoot that direction and this direction and be okay. If you want to shoot into the light, that's when we get into serious trouble. So let's choose our coverage wisely. So we did that, shot the whole day thing, and we come to the scene where we have to look into where the lights are. And say, okay, now this is the coverage now. It's changed. We're not going to shoot up and down like we talked about because the director came back, the actors came back saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is where they're sitting now. It needs to be changed. And we had this whole big plan. This was going to be our setup. And now it wasn't. And that was about, I don't know, maybe the 5th time that had happened. And we had 3 in lighting, the gaffer, best boy, and an assistant. And they were just fucking dead. We'd had a late night before, and they were like, okay, we can move it. I said, but they said, but this is me talking to the gaffer. We're going to miss the dusk. We got this one more day set up. We're going to miss the dusk shots because it's going to take so long to move all this fucking gear. Why don't you just change the shot? I said, well, the shot has been changed. He wants something else. It's like, well, okay, we can change it, but it's going to take a while. I say, okay, just move as fast as you can. And it came back, okay, well, we can move as fast as we can, but nobody's running. Nobody's running to get this changed. So they start taking things away, and just the pressure on set just mounts and mounts and mounts, because the director sees them and the production sees them moving to get this stuff, but they're not running, right? They're moving the stuff as fast as you would normally move things. And it just all came to a fucking huge head of, like, this is not, what's the point of having a plan if we're going to break a plan? Like, it creates so much extra work. And it came back that the lighting guys were like, yeah, well, this is the speed that we're going, because this is ridiculous. And my role was to go back and say to the director, okay, this is the situation. We may not get this shot because of our dusk setup that's going to happen later that we need to get. We may not get there because we're going to have to light this shot. We're going to have to take away everything that we were doing. Then we're going to have to light this shot, which is going to take time. Then when we go down and do the dusk shot, we're going to have to bump all that stuff out because it's now in the background. So how do we get around that? And the director said, well, yeah, okay. Let's just let's go for it anyway. And it was just as slow as humanly possible that the thing got changed out, and what it felt as slow as possible, even though the lighting people were moving at their normal pace. They just weren't gonna, they couldn't run for 6 weeks. They had to just go at a pace where they could continue to make it the whole time. And that meant that any changes to the schedule would incur penalties, basically. So that was the main blow up. And my role was saying, yeah, I said, definitely look after yourselves. Like, for the lighting people, if you're moving at a pace that is too fast or dangerous, I said, just go. I'm not asking you to run or do anything like that. All I'm saying is, how long is it going to take you to move this shit? I just need an answer. And Gaffer comes back with an answer. I say, that's it. Okay. I understand that we're all moving fast and that it's tired. You're tired. I'm tired. Everyone's tired. But go at the speed that they're not going to run. I'm not going to tell them to run. If you want them to run, you can go try. But this is the speed that they're moving. So that was my role, basically to tell the truth. And in the end, everybody came back around. All right, it's just one of those days halfway through. Okay. How did the feature affect your personal life? It made it non-existent for close to 3 months. Did you find that having to work fast has helped you to be more decisive with your lights? No. No, not at all. Working faster made no difference. Like, I'm not working faster. That's what I'm trying to get across. Other people are not working faster either. You're going at the same pace. Like, there's nobody running to put up light stands. And it's not like on commercials you don't set up all of the lights and then go, I don't really like that. Let's reset everything. You don't do that on a commercial. You're not going to do that on a feature. You have to be decisive anyway. It's more that everything will change. So being very specific was actually really difficult. At the start of the day when the camera crew and gaffer crew arrives, how long on average should it take the gaffer and camera? Well, that was on average. Yeah, you can't really do those because every single thing was different. Sometimes we would show up and we wouldn't light at all. And sometimes it would be, 3 hours of pre-rigging for our night stuff. Let's see. Okay, Frogger. I think that was all the questions. We didn't even get into the other breakdown. What time is it? Jesus, we've been going an hour. Okay, so that's the plan. Unless someone else has got a better solution. Starting next week, we're going to go through and start at day 1 of the feature film, which just so happens to be in this record shop. How's this? We started day 1 with the most emotional final scene of the movie. That's what we started on. So we had our lead actress and our lead actor playing out the super emotional scene. And they had met, 3 days before and had never worked together. And it was like, okay, go. And it was all set in this record shop. And yeah, so this is the 50mm anamorphic. This is probably, I think we shot the whole thing at T4. So this is T4. Just look at the bowing. Jesus. That's that's going to be a feature of this movie, the Boeing. But this was it. This was two M40s over here, which is our big lights in the van. Two M40s through a 12x12 and an 8x8 of quarter grid. And probably some floppies over here, or just a T-bar of an 8x8. So, that's it. Any other questions? No. Good. Okay. Commercials? And then, yeah, we're going to be... I guess the plan also is, because it's really hard, I know from Patreon people that keep sending me messages. Next week, we're just going to go in chronological order. That way, people can start at their leisure and go through. And there'll be moments when we do question and answer stuff. But really, it's just going to be like an extended breakdown podcast live. And hopefully I can get it so my computer doesn't shit itself. So, Sydney. And right now it looks like it's Trish Cahill. Fingers crossed. Will be the woman doing the grade. So I'm excited about that. That's something good. And I'll let you be the judge of how we did. But there is some stuff now that, now that I'm not as close to it, my face isn't pressed right against the canvas. As you step back, you start to go, yeah. And I don't know if that was me adapting to the expectations or if it was actually starting to go better. But we started doing way less. And I think it was also the director learning as well. Like, okay, we've got this much time in a day. What does that mean for coverage? Let's pare this back, or let's do this more. And I think we all got better. So it's going to be interesting to see how that mixes in with the previous stuff. But yeah, that's it. Okay. Sid, no, I can't cycle through any of the images because I don't have anything on this computer. It's all on this is somebody else's project that I was going to break down, but I didn't get any time. So this was just the original image, that one of the ones I have on this computer. But next week we'll be back in this record shop looking at it. Okay, that's going to do it. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.